Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Defense of Democracy Nationwide call. I am Karen Swoboda. I am the Executive Director of Defense of Democracy, and it's a pleasure to have everyone here. If one of my co-hosts could just keep an eye on the chat at this point and admit people, I'm just going to play everyone a very quick video for you for right now.
On Friday, President Trump signed an executive order laying the groundwork to get rid of the department. Now, as a voice for everyone, KSHB 41 reporter Alyssa Jackson hearing from a parent and a teacher about what that could mean for local students.
There's been a scramble ever since President Trump signed an executive order to dismantle the Department of Education. And in our community, conversations are happening about protecting education. Local tax dollars usually make up a large portion of public school budgets. Dismantling the Department of Education would mean other agencies would need to take on oversight of federal programs and funding. That includes federal student loans, ensuring student disability rights, and distributing aid money for schools with low-income students and special education services. And where's the oversight going to come from? While Katie Williams is here in an official capacity for a nonprofit focused on education advocacy, she believes the consequences this could have are personal. I'm a mom of a child in special education and who's medically fragile. So he's autistic, as well as he has cystic fibrosis. He requires a medical 504 accommodation at school. Understanding this executive order is not a done deal. The discussion could have a long way to go.
Executive orders are a wish list that the president makes. It's not a law.
Eliminating the agency would require congressional approval. Then that's where state governments may have to step in to take over some of its functions. The president's order called for authority to return to states and local communities while ensuring the effective and uninterrupted delivery of services, programs, and benefits Americans rely on.
We need to make sure the money given to us for these things and being allotted out to us by state representatives actually goes to what it needs to be used for.
There have been arguments for years about eliminating the agency, with opponents saying local schools have more control than the federal agency does. As education advocates push back, they and lawmakers on both sides of the state line wait to see if shutting the agency down will actually mean any services will be interrupted.
This changes how our communities will function, how our entire state will function, how our country will function.
Alyssa Jackson, KSHB.
Don't you all love the timeline that we're living in right now? Again, welcome to the Defense of Democracy Nationwide call. My name is Karen Swoboda. I'm the Executive Director for Defense of Democracy. Before we get the call started, I really wanted to, first of all, show that video and say a huge thank you to Katie Williams, who is our volunteer state director in Kansas. I thought that was an excellent video. I was actually really impressed. Usually they don't they zoomed in on our logo. You saw who we were. I thought that it was really well done. So congratulations to Kansas for that great video. And I have a few people, I think I'm going to start these calls really, I just have felt so incredibly grateful to the volunteers that we have participating in this movement right now. Defense of Democracy, I mean, we have a nationwide reach, right? And we are doing that entirely on the backs of volunteers like yourselves. So I'm going to, first of all, my deepest gratitude to everybody on this call who has stepped into the role of volunteer state director. I'm going to ask you all to say a little bit about what's going on in your states. But before I do, I want everyone to know that these individuals who have stepped into this role are really the reason why change is happening, and schools are protected and families are protected because they are getting out there and doing what needs to be done. I want to say a quick thank you to 4 other people who are very much work behind the scenes and you may not know. One of them is Valerie. Anyone here who's made a donation to Defense of Democracy, has gotten a thank you note, a personalized thank you note from Valerie. Every week, this is a volunteer who I send the list of people who donated, whether it's a $5 donation or a $100 donation. And she goes through every one of them and lets people know exactly what's happening with their money. I don't know a lot of nonprofits who do this, I mean, person by person. But I see all the donations, and Valerie is just an angel in letting people know how grateful we are. So I wanted to thank Valerie. Alan is a volunteer who actually mans our email address. He's been with us from he's an OG, right? Alan has been with us from day one. He's the one, when you write to info@defensivedemocracy.org, that's Alan. And he, sometimes the emails aren't that nice that we get to our info@defensivedemocracy.org, but he's always handled it with a real sense of humor and class. So thank you, Alan, for watching that. And I want to say an additional thank you to George and Josh, who are our tech team chairs, and they have both worked around the clock to get Defense of Democracy. We have just signed on to Google for Nonprofits. This is a huge step for us. They are responsible for that transition. For those of you who have a Defense of Democracy email address, there were some bumps, there were some kinks. I want to say how grateful I am with the amount of patience that everyone has shown with this transition, because everybody's a volunteer, George and Josh as well. So this has been a huge thank you to everybody who makes the wheels turn. And yes, listen, if there's someone you want to thank in the chat, Dylan is awesome. I'm going to thank 5 different people every week. So please feel free to shout out so that it helps. I think it helps advocates to say thank you. I had a lecture with not a lecture, but I had a conversation with one of my other volunteer state directors who was really feeling overwhelmed and down. And I was like, you know what I do when I'm really feeling like I am at the edge of my rope? I write a really sincere thank you note to someone who has been helping me. And that actually helps me because, everyone who's sitting on this call is an empath and somebody who wants to do good. So what is one of the best ways that you can make someone feel good is to be really sincerely and specifically thankful for the work they're doing. So please consider doing that. Now, it is my pleasure to no, Preston is not in that was except you, Preston. It is my pleasure to introduce you today, our guest on the call. Richard Blanco has been, has been an inaugural poet. I came across him, I believe it was on TikTok, it was on social media somewhere, and I just thought that he was speaking a language that really resonated with me and with what this group is all about. So I invited him, I reached out to him, hi Richard, and asked him if he would consider joining our nationwide call today, and he said yes. And it really meant a lot. Richard, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to our call. And I just want to turn it over to you because in addition to being an amazing poet, you've got a really unique perspective, having given an inaugural address and the people you work with and your own personal background. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So audio okay?
Yeah, it's great.
Well, as I like to say, it was made in Cuba. Made in Cuba, assembled in Spain, and imported to the United States. So my mom left Cuba when she was 7 months pregnant as an exile to Madrid, where I was born, and 45 days after my birth, we emigrated to the United States, first to New York and eventually to Miami, where I was mostly raised and educated. I say that because that beginning sort of, even though I wasn't consciously aware of it, started me, I think, in a path of what is the center of my work, of my poetry, and really my life. And that is the idea of home, belonging, country, identity, all these kinds of questions that are all related, and all that floats around it: family, community, etc. And of course, democracy, which is what my parents came here for. So that's about it in a nutshell. I've been a practicing civil engineer most of my adult life and a poet. The big break came in 2013 when President Obama asked me to write an original poem and recite it at his inauguration in 2013. And that's pretty much been writing that way ever since then. Recently started teaching at my alma mater at Florida International University. And yeah, it's just glad to join you and start you off with a poem, which I think is what Karen had in mind. Of course, so many of my poems I think can fit this theme. Um, I chose this one. I hope I hope it reaches it touches you in a way that we need to be touched right now. Um, this is from fairly recent book called How to Love a Country, which I wrote before even Trump was elected in 2016. But as poets, I always say poets, when things are going good, they're like, what's wrong? And when things are really wrong, they're like, what's good? You know, they're always questioning and hoping at the same time. But anyway, I think the seeds of division were around even back then. And the book How to Love a Country focuses a lot on that. It's you could almost put a question mark behind that title as well. It's kind of like, how do you love a country? What is a country? How do we define that? How do we think about that as home, which is the context in which I approached it? As I said, that's been something that's been at the center of my body of work. Any case, I started thinking about a few things for this poem, two inspirations. One is the greeting of the Zulu people. So instead of the usual good morning or like how you doing, and yeah, everybody just mouths off, yeah, I'm fine. How you doing? Fine. How you doing? Fine. Yeah, my dog just died, but I'm fine. You know. um, uh, the Zulu people look each other in the eye, and the greeting is, "I see you," and the response is, "I am here to be seen, and I see you." So that's one of the issues, because I think we've forgotten how to see each other in this country. The other inspiration was the Declaration of Independence, which is something that may have been great a few hundred years ago, but the next level of what is, I think, what is a true democracy is really recognizing interdependence is the next level, the highest level of coexistence and human understanding. I think the pandemic taught us some of that, but man, we sure forgot about that soon enough, right? How everyone matters, everyone is part of a larger whole. And so this poem has excerpts from the Declaration of Independence, working around it and sort of recasting it as the Declaration of Interdependence. Again, to recognize that interdependence, to perhaps also seeing beyond the stereotypes we have of each other, so that perhaps we can have other more meaningful conversations. So here we go. Declaration of Interdependence. Such has been the patient's sufferance. Where her mother's bread, instant potatoes, milk at a checkout line, where her 3 children pleading for bubblegum, and their father, where the 3 minutes she steals to page through a tabloid, needing to believe even stars' lies are as joyful, as bruised as hers. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. Where her second job serving an executive absorbed in a Wall Street Journal, at a sidewalk cafe shadowed by skyscrapers, where the shadows of the fortune he won and the family he lost, where his loss and the lost, where a father in a coal town who can't mine a life anymore because too much and too little has happened for far too long. A history of repeated injuries and usurpations, with the grit of his Main Street's blacked out windows and graffitied truths, where a street in another town lined with royal palms, at home with a Peace Corps couple who collect African art, where their dinner party talk of wines, wilted picket signs, and burned draft cards, where what they know is time to do more than read the New York Times, buy fair trade coffee and organic corn. In every step of these oppressions, we have been petitioned for redress. We're the farmer who grew that corn, who plows until his couch is worn as his back by the end of the day, where his TV set blaring news having everything and nothing to do with the field dust in his eyes or his son nested in the ache of his arms. We're his son. We're a black teenager who drove too fast or too slowly, talked too much or too little, moved too quickly, but not quick enough. We're the blast of the bullet leaving the gun. We're the guilt and grief of the cop who maybe wished he hadn't shot. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We're the dead, we're the living amid the vigil of candlelight. We're in a dim cell with an inmate reading Dostoevsky, where his crime, his sentence, his amends. We're the mending of ourselves and others. We're a Buddhist serving soup at a shelter alongside a stockbroker. We're each other's shelter and hope. A widow's 50 cents in a collection plate, and a golfer's $10,000 pledge for a cure. We hold these truths to be self-evident. We hold these truths to be self-evident. We're the cure for the hatred caused by our despair. We're the good morning of a bus driver who remembers our name, the tattooed man who gives up his seat on the subway, where every door held open with a smile. When we look into each other's eyes, the way we behold the moon. We're the moon. We're the promise of one people, one breath, declaring to one another, I see you. I see you. I see you. I need you. I am you. You.
Wow. Yeah, we needed this. Oh my goodness. I don't know why hearing that was so emotional to me, but it really was. And I just think it's a release of some of that I wrote down, it's time to do more, right? And I think everyone on this call is ready to uh do more than's been done. Yeah, just look at the chat for a minute because they're hitting it. And okay.
Yeah. I should mention too that I think part of my deep faith and optimism, it ironically comes from having parents that are exiles and immigrants. And I always say they're more American than I can ever be for the leap that they made, the sacrifices. Um, those of us who got here really young or grew up here can often take those liberties, those promises, those rights for granted, and not so much anymore. But that deep faith that my parents have in this country is always has rubbed off on me. So um, faith and hope, I think, is still some left.
Richard, thank you so much. Please hang out. Feel free to listen in. We have a lot of wonderful
So
things going on. It's definitely an inspiration to kind of follow our meeting after that. Like, wow, so uplifting. Thank you, thank you,
it's
thank
a
you.
power, yes. And please email me, and I can send you a copy of the poem for everyone to
Oh,
have.
yes, I would love that. Thank
Because
you.
I know just hearing it sometimes,
Yeah. We're recording this. We're gonna put it up on YouTube, so I'll add your poem to that. I would
Okay, perfect.
if I could. Whew, okay. Now we are going to, I have asked our volunteer state directors to give a quick statement about what's going on in their states before we go into a breakout room. I'm going to actually spotlight a few of them. Erica, I've got you on, surprise. Katie and let's see, Lindsay, who else is here? Marley. So I'm going to start adding people to this. But why don't we start with Erica? Tell us what's going on in Oklahoma.
Well, I mean, a lot of the same stuff right now. We're focusing on some of the bills that are in the legislature that are harmful, as well as we had a new social studies standards. I'm not going to get in the weeds about it, but very much ideologically religious suggestions in there. I think that there's a part of it that is supposed to teach that there were discrepancies in the 2020 election. So then we do have our Trans Day of Visibility event that we're doing in conjunction with the State Board of Education meeting that we go to every month. So yeah, that's just our little quick update. So making our presence known that Ryan Walters doesn't speak for us.
You know, he does not. Thank you, Erica. Next up, let's do Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm the volunteer state director for Kansas. Kansas has been really busy. We're continuing to fight for fully funding special education, meeting with our legislators, going to lobby days, as well as now engaging and educating our constituents on what it means to dismantle the Department of Education.
Thank you, Katie. Next up is Lindsay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay. I am the volunteer state director in Ohio. Right now, we are just really focused on funding for Ohio public education, working on contacting legislators to stand up and agree to keep the funding for public schools. And then also just watching all of these bills go through the State House. Ohio just banned DEI and teacher the union organizing and striking for higher education, but a very similar bill is now working its way through our state house for K through 12 schools, which would have, I think we all know the impacts because it's also being talked on a national level. So it's just really fun to know that they're wanting to give education back to the states, and our state already is, working on all of this stuff to burn it all down. It's just a great time right there with all of you. So
thank you, Lindsay. Okay, Marley, tell us about Texas.
Hi everyone. So this week in Texas, I'm still finalizing some things with our new chapter chair. So I've been working on that last week, and then also just keeping up with some bad bills that have been filed in the state of Texas. For example, SB 86, SB HB 212, and HB 183, and hopefully in our breakout room, we'll start drafting some emails to those legislators who have drafted that, such as Jarrett Patterson and Briscoe Kane. So that's what I've been working on this week, and thanks for having me.
Marley, thank you, thank you. Debbie.
Hi, I'm Debbie, the volunteer state director for New York. Right now, this past week, this Attorney General has joined with other people to file a lawsuit against Trump and his dismantling of the Department of Education. And Governor Hochul has also stated that she has found funding or has funding in the budget so that the kids can have their free lunch program. So far, that's what's going on. I have been asking and sending out in the weekly letter to links from the American Federation of Teachers and NYSET, which is the New York State Union of Teachers, to press on their link and to therefore send a letter to your congressman to vote no for the dismantling. And we can discuss that more during the break room.
Thank you, Debbie. Next up is Gina.
Evening, Gina Arlen, co-VSD for Pennsylvania, along with Rob Gerchev. If you're here, Rob, wave. Here in purple Pennsylvania, well, we've got it all. We got the good. Governor Shapiro is promising to fight federal cuts. He hasn't joined any lawsuits yet, but we got our fingers crossed. We also have the Pembroke School Board flipping their extremist school board, so we've got the good. We've also got the bad. The Eastern York School District voted to adopt anti-LGBTQ pronoun policies after one of the state representatives threatened them under President Trump's new executive order. And we've got the sneaky. Independence Law Center, religious extremist law firm that helps school boards across Pennsylvania adopt anti-LGBTQ policies. So we've got it all here in Purple, Pennsylvania. Welcome to the fight, fellow Keystoners. Hope to see you in the breakout room.
Thank you, Gina. Megan.
Hi, everyone. So in Indiana, I think our governor is taking most of his cues from Trump these days. So definitely big concerns related to the budget and charter schools, vouchers, all that awful stuff. So that's what we have going on. We can talk more about it in the breakout room. Thanks.
Thank you, Megan. Amy, you're next up.
Hi, okay, Amy from Florida. I had a bunch of kids home from spring break college this past week, so I did a lot of momming, but on Saturday we had a showing here of the Band Together documentary that we have featured here on one of the meetings, and my husband's in the film, so they had a panel afterwards with him and Jen Jenkins, and I got to meet Jen and Tom Wiggins in person, and heard about some extra Jennifer Pippin footage they may or may not have, and so we might be doing something fun with that. And also watching some nasty bills, HB 1225 and SB 918. Are because of our local Moms for Liberty trash. Her name is Monique Miller. I hate her. She lives here in Brevard. And she's trying to do away with some child labor laws. She wants the 17 and 16-year-olds to work more now that we don't have as many immigrants. So that's what's going on.
Awesome. Okay. Lauren.
Hi guys, Lauren, Volunteer State Director from Virginia. This week we are dealing with a lot of actually the budget, which is the big one, because we actually have a decent General Assembly. So what Governor Youngkin's doing is vetoing all the good bills. And one of that is the budget. And he is sending back the budget that was bipartisanly passed from the State House, and wanting to defund support staff and mental health in schools, and then fund vouchers with that. So this week we're going to be working on in our breakout room how to contact our legislators and drafting up a letter to do that, to just encourage them to make sure that they push back and keep our schools funded. We also last week had our state superintendent step down suddenly, and our current acting state superintendent is a former voucher scheme lobbyist from Arizona. So that is fun. So yeah, we're dealing with it here in Virginia too. But we're on it, and we have a lot of people that are holding them accountable.
Thank you, Lauren. Next up is Deep.
Hey there, Deep from Washington, D.C., and a quick update for what's going on, especially with the executive order to dismantle the Department of Education. So far, states have been scrambling to see, cities in the DMV have been scrambling to see how they can contain what could be like the biggest cut for the DMV, especially because Washington, D.C.'s funding for education is managed by Congress, not by its council, and that there has been sort of no voice of action from Mayor Bowser or her committee. So especially there's also concern of free speech crackdown, as recently in Georgetown, the Georgetown graduate student was arrested for his stance on pro-Palestine. So it's like a complication of budget issues, especially with student loans throughout DMV, but also the free speech issues.
Thank you, Deep. Before we move on, I want to say that I am following in the chat that people are really happy with having this this kind of like snapshot of what's happening around the country. I definitely think we're going to make this a regular thing. It gives you a sense of what's going on and what everybody's working on. And sometimes I'm finding out things that I didn't know about. So it's really a good opportunity. And again, so grateful for my volunteer state directors. Alan, you're next.
Hi, everyone. Alan from South Carolina. We've seems like a lot of the states are going through the same thing right now. We have a anti-DEI bill that's going to be discussed in the state house tomorrow. So there is a call for action for that. We also had in Charleston County, the board fired the head of DEI. And so in the board meeting on Monday, there was a packed house of people expressing their displeasure with that. And we're going to continue to put pressure on the board to do the right thing. Unfortunately, the fear of losing funding is a very big motivator for getting rid of people who are needed, especially in a very diverse county like Charleston. We also have multiple book bans now at the state level. They have meetings every month where one person can put up to 5 books for banning, and so far there have been 11 that have gone, and a lot of them are from some of our favorite authors like Ellen Hopkins. They banned a few of her books already, unfortunately. And we're also involved with some pressure on our local Congresswoman Nancy Mace to do a town hall. So we're going to do a virtual one on Friday, and she's not going to show up, but we're going to, try to embarrass her into showing up and listening to her constituents.
Not for nothing, but that is not a bad strategy. Like, they should be ashamed for not speaking to their constituents, because they represent everybody, not just a single party.
I think there's going to be 300 to 400 people at this town hall.
Nice.
And she won't show up because she thinks it's all leftist agitators that are paid by Soros.
Oh my God. All right, give me that Soros money. All right, thank you, Alan. Meredith, Illinois.
Hi, yes, I'm Meredith. I'm the volunteer state director from Illinois. Here we've been primarily focused this week on LifeWise Academy, since they've been making a push in some school districts fairly close, trying to get chapters up and running. If you weren't here last week, LifeWise is an organization that takes kids out of school for religious education. So we've been trying to spread awareness about that, and network with people who can help us strategize against that. There's also several bills coming up through the Illinois. Sorry, Karen, I just saw your message. I did post the YouTube on the Facebook. There's also several bills coming up through the Illinois state legislature that's anti-LGBTQIA in schools, which we've been trying to spread awareness about and contact the local state senators. So that's what's happening here.
Great, Meredith. Thank you. Diana Patton is not a volunteer state director, but she is the commander of Veterans Defending Democracy. And Diana I wanted you to come on, if you could, a little bit and talk about what we're seeing on military bases as far as schools.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, there's been a couple student-led protests on military bases because they've basically, I don't know if you know this, but overseas, they actually have schools for children, families of those serving overseas to attend. And they've already done everything like ban the books, wash the history books, ban anything LGBT from being in those schools. And a lot of these students have started protesting, which could actually result in trouble for their parents who are serving. And their parents are standing behind them protesting on these bases.
Thank you, Diana. Really, really important stuff as well. Okay, so what is going to happen now in the program is I am going to open up the breakout rooms, and everyone can go into a different breakout room. To my volunteer state directors, if you happen to not have anyone in your breakout room, which occasionally happens, feel free to just jump into another one of the breakout rooms, because it's important to just definitely kind of get in the loop with what's being discussed, what people are talking about. For example, Deep is new, Meredith is new, maybe not we'll have people from your states coming on, but it would be great if you don't have anybody, just go into another room to hang out. And Josh, I see your hand up. What's going on?
Did you mean to make the tech one research?
Oh, it's supposed to be research. I called it tech.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you are here
Everyone in the
for
research committee, join the tech breakout room.
there you go. I am going to be, I see some of my Film Fest volunteers, so we're going to be in the Film Fest room. If you guys want to go there, I usually just stick around behind to help everybody get in the right breakout room, and I will meet you in there. If you are one of our guests and are not in and need help moving into a breakout room, just let me know, and I will go ahead and put you in there. You just have to put it right in the chat. Come on. Hi, Jeannie. I see you. You haven't been around in a while. I don't know which room to put you in. I'm going to put you in Florida because that one's fun. Jeannie's my cousin. Paul, Florida. Amy, Florida. Who else needs help? Oh, Danielle, Ohio. Okay. Hey, Daniel. Oh, can I put you in the Washington, D.C. one, or do you want to go to Virginia? Which would you rather? Let's see. We're getting there. We have 1, 2. Daniel, I guess I'll put you in Washington. So we have a handful of people here. Sarah, Reagan, John, Amanda. Oh, we don't have California. Amanda, we do not have a volunteer state director in California. But I would love to talk to you about being a volunteer state director. I tell you what, Amanda, since we don't have California, I'm going to go ahead and put you in Florida. Opposite side of the country, but you'll get a sense of what our volunteer state director does. And there is actually another person from California in Florida. So I'm going to put you there. Oklahoma. Yeah, happy to do that. Let's get you in there. Okay. So now we're down to Sarah and Jessica. And I'm not sure where you guys need to go. Okay, so Jessica. Oh, you're in Oklahoma. Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, there's something going on here. I have to go into